And tonight we're going to be talking about discipleship. Welcome to this episode of the Word Unbound. The Word Unbound exists to help Christians be more biblically minded by answering common questions through the lens of Scripture. My name is Conrad Mills, and today I'm here with Will Sanderson.
How's it going, Conrad?
It's great. Episode 24.
24. That sounds
We're
right.
moving up. We've done a lot of these.
Yeah.
I'm getting more comfortable. Are you?
Yeah, it's been a good time.
Yeah.
I've been enjoying it.
It's a fun thing. We hope you guys are enjoying it as well. Yeah. And tonight we're going to be talking about discipleship.
Ooh, discipleship. Yeah. It's important, obviously. It's the Great Commission to be disciples.
What does it mean? What does discipleship mean? What is a disciple?
So a disciple is the word mathetes, which means learner. Mm-hmm. And so that's what you're doing, right? You're learning from someone. Mm-hmm. That is to be a disciple, right? So you can be, like Mahomes is a disciple of Andy Reid, right? He's learning from.
I would argue Cliff Kingsbury, but
whatever.
He was a disciple of Cliff Kingsbury. Now he's a disciple of Andy Reid.
And so I mean, you can use it in a non-Christian context, is what I mean. It means learner. It's something that you learn from, right? And so in the Christian context, a definition we use around our church is, helping others be more like Jesus. Mm-hmm. A definition that MacArthur uses is spiritual friendship. Mm-hmm. And I think that one's vague. It's super vague. But I think in some ways that's helpful.
It's good. I mean, it can go a bunch of different ways with it, and there's a lot of application that comes with that definition of spiritual friendship. Yeah,
and I think that's helpful because oftentimes we get a skewed view of what discipleship is.
Okay.
Like if I'm not at a coffee shop reading a John Piper book, then I'm not being discipled, right? If I don't have this list of questions that people are asking me as I'm being held accountable, and then we're diving through this thing, we're working through this program, that I'm not being discipled, and that's just simply not true, right? And I want to dispel that myth because that's a myth. That's not how Christians have done it always, and that's not what we need to view as the only way to do discipleship. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want someone who's not getting that to think that they're not being discipled in any way.
Well, yeah, and too, I mean, look at Jesus. Look at how he discipled his disciples.
No coffee.
I don't think there was a coffee shop. There definitely wasn't a John Piper book, although those are wonderful. But he didn't take people through programs. He spent his life with these men, these 3 years of his public ministry, instructing them, teaching them, modeling what it looked like to be the only perfect man, the God man who ever lived. I mean, it wasn't a rigorous programmatic type of discipleship that is often so much of what you see in the church today.
And that's not to say that's wrong, right? I mean,
no.
So both of us do discipleship, and both of us are being discipled, right?
Yeah.
And that's not to say, like, I wrote out a book. Your reading list was set for a year when you and I started meeting, right? And so I have no problem with programs. I have no problem with that kind of stuff.
But they're only supplemental to
the life on life kind of style.
Absolutely.
And more than that, I just want you to feel like, okay, just because I'm not going through something doesn't mean I'm not being discipled. Mm-hmm. I think when we look at it, I think Luke 9:23 is a pinnacle of what Christianity ought to be like, right? And he, that is Jesus, was saying to them all, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it. Whoever wishes to lose his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it. And he goes on, but I think discipleship is learning how to pick up your cross daily. Mm-hmm. Jesus says, follow me. Discipleship is learning how to do that. I think of a high school student that goes and bakes bread with a woman in the church, and she learns how to interact with a 9-year-old daughter and learns how to be a wife and how to be. I think of how I was discipled and how much I learned about marriage simply by running errands with the guy that was discipling me. Of just like, hey, we're going to go get flowers for my wife. Hey, we're going to go get my wife's oil changed. Hey, we're going to go and do this. And you would think my wife would want that, but really, and you just got to, like, I learned so much about that. And that wasn't even why. I was just riding along, right? He was just taking me along because he had errands to do and he didn't want to do them without somebody. And so, and I think even just in our church, I've even seen Like one of the students in our ministry called up your wife and was like, "Hey, I'm spending the night," and that conversations went well of just like, what is it like to be married? What is it like to, go to college and those kind of things? And it's all going back to, how do you love Jesus well? How do you follow Jesus Christ? How do you live biblically in a fallen and broken world? On this side of the Garden of Eden, how are we supposed to honor and love the Lord? And that's what discipleship is. And so you're going to learn that from people that are your age. You're going to learn it from people that are younger than you. You're going to learn it from people that are older than you. And it's going to look a lot of different ways.
Yeah. There's no, cookie cutter way of what it's got to look like. I mean, you learn things from, like you just said, from people your age, from people that are older than you. And I would argue in a sense that you're not, people say, oh, this is my discipler. This is the person that's discipling me. I don't hate that language. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think it's always true, because I think you're learning how to be more like Jesus from multiple people.
Yeah.
If there's only one person in your life that's teaching you how to be more like Jesus, you need to go get more people in your life that are showing you and living a life that is showing you how to be more like Jesus, how to be more holy, how to be more loving, how to be more caring. You're not just discipled by one person. Although, is there a primary discipler? In many cases, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not just this, it's not only I'm being discipled when I'm during this hour that I'm meeting with this person talking about this stuff. It's not that. It's so much more than that. Seeing how this person does life, seeing, how do they handle different conversations and different things like that. And discipling is not a one-way street either. I think that's something that people automatically think it's like, this person's discipling me. Well, I've heard countless stories that people have told about, I was supposed to be meeting up with them, showing them how to be more like Jesus, but I learned this from them in this season of life where they were, seeing a lot of victory over sin in their life, or maybe I wasn't. It's not this one-way street. It's a two-way street. That's a wonderful thing. And that's how it should be.
Yeah.
And it's a great thing to see and witness things like that too.
And that's the beautiful thing about life in the church, right? And that's why I think both of us would agree it's really bad to segment yourself into just this little pocket of the church where you're only hanging out with like 5 people, or you're only hanging out with people your age or in your stage of life and things like that. Like, that's not helpful. And so I just think it's so, like, I think about just being discipled in how to love Jesus well as I'm hearing the congregation sing, right? And I'm seeing this guy who I know drove hours to get here, and just watching him sing, and listening to him sing. And I'm just thinking about, learning from the students, even just seeing how they pray and the apps that they use, because they're just technologically driven more so than I am. And they come up with these different things, and it's cool. And you're learning these different things because the goal is to love Christ, to follow him, to love the lost, to love your neighbor as yourself, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and anything or anyone that's going to help you along that path. That's what it's all about. Now, if you don't have someone in your life that's meeting with you, that's getting in your grill on some things, get that, get that kind of accountability, get that kind of discipleship, that intense one-on-one thing, especially if that's what you need. And I would argue at some point, everyone needs that, right? If you've never had that, go get it. You walk into your pastor's office and say, I want to be discipled. He will jump for joy, and he'll say, okay, either I'm going to meet with you or this guy's going to meet with you, but this is what's going to happen. So just, do that. But understand that it's more than just the programs. It's more than just the books and the coffee and all that kind of stuff. And it goes far above and beyond that. That someone just being in your home, talking, laughing, sharing life. You're even still sharing that Christian perspective on the things you're not talking about, the things you are talking about, the way that you enjoy, the way that you cry, the way that you suffer. All those things are explaining and showing this beautiful thing that God has created us to be, which is the church, right? And we're bearing one another's burdens, and we're pursuing one another, right?
So based on that, you would agree with the statement that discipleship it can definitely happen with people that are in other local congregations that you're friends with, but it should primarily be happening within your local church. Would you agree with that statement?
I think so. I think when you try to do it outside of the local church, you run into some issues potentially, doctrinal for one. And also, it's like, okay, I've committed to this local congregation, so I'm going to be there. I've committed and said, like, I'm a part of this congregation, and therefore my involvement in the body is crucial to that body's health. You don't have a finger, and then that finger goes and hangs out on another body once a week. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah, and that, but all that to say, like, I mean, I get it. If you're maybe say you're in college and you've got this group of guys that you really know, and you guys maybe all go to different churches, but you live together and you guys encourage one another. That's awesome. I'm all for that. You know, and I think that's fantastic. Or maybe you're in high school and you're on a sports team, or maybe you're in your 30s and you're at work, or you're in your 70s and you've got this little community group or YMCA or whatever it is, and like you go there and there are people there that love the Lord and you're spending time together. That's awesome, right? Like all that is great, and I think all that's discipleship, and all of that is just to bring God more glory, to give God the most glory that you can possibly give Him while you're alive, right? And we do that by learning, by being a disciple of the Word, being a disciple in prayer, being a disciple of other Christians.
Yeah, absolutely. Discipleship, helping others becoming more like Jesus.
Spiritual friendship,
whichever one you like better.
There you go.
I mean, they generally they mean the same thing.
More or less, yeah.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Word Unbound. We pray this information was helpful for you. And if it was, feel free to give us a follow and a share. We'll see you next time.
See you later.